Welcome to the Mark Divine Show. I'm your host, Mark Divine. If you're a leader, ready to grow, push your limits, and lead with deeper purpose, then you're in the right place. Good for you. Each episode will challenge you to lead with courage, resilience, and deeper awareness, elevating your impact in every area of life. So let's dive into today's conversation and see what's possible with our guest, Dr. Eric Cole. Dr. Cole is a former CIA hacker. He's a leading cybersecurity expert, best-selling author. He's spent over 30 years securing our digital world. Thank you very much, sir. From advising U.S. presidents and protecting Fortune 500 companies, Dr. Cole's on a mission to make cyberspace safer for us all. So get ready for this powerful conversation on digital resilience, leadership, and staying sharp in this world with constant threats. How's that for an intro?
I like it. I'm going to hire you, man. You're going to have to give all my intros.
Yeah, I wrote it. Thanks for coming out, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I always love traveling.
Yeah. Well, it's a long way from Washington, D.C., but hope it's worth it.
Trust me, getting out of Washington with all the politics, it's worth it, man. It's way too much political in D.C. these days. So,
dude, I'm pretty pissed. Not at you.
Okay.
I got a notice from this guy. He said, hey, I work for Dave Asprey, right? You probably know who that is.
Oh, Dave, yeah. Good guy.
I'm friends with Dave. And he recommended you to us, and he wants you to do a Facebook Live with him. And so if you're open to it, let's get together and go through how to do Facebook Live and make sure we set everything up. And I'm like, I got sucked right into this. So now I'm on this Zoom call, and my first sign that something was awkward was the guy who was on the call with me wouldn't go on video. And his voice sounded like he was coming through a speaker.
Okay.
Right? Like it was garbled, maybe being translated.
Okay.
And he had me open up the Meta Business Suite and going back and forth trying to figure this shit out. And about 10 minutes into it, I know it's a little long for me, right? Navy SEAL, Mr. Intuition. I finally get that spidey sense, and I just like press end. And I'm like, darn it, I just got scammed. But I couldn't figure out what his angle was. And about 2 weeks, Joe Sullivan, let's just say, not his real name,
yeah,
was posing as you, saying they want me to do, or they want my client to do a Facebook Live with you. Is this true? And of course, we're like, no, sorry, you're being scammed. This is the world we live in. Like, that was super elaborate. I couldn't even figure out what his angle was. Like, he's trying to like amass followers from these influencers to sell them bullshit, or what's he doing?
So it's two things. First is...
Or it's probably an organization.
First is a little scary, is they wanted to get your voice so they could basically create AI models to mimic you.
Oh, God.
Because if they can get you talking for 10 minutes about very specific terms, so when you're doing an AI model, there are certain words and phrases that you need to train the model so they can reproduce and act like you. So most likely, he was queuing you up on certain questions and positions because now he's going after your followers. And then most of this is really monetary driven. So
he can make videos that sound like they're coming from me?
Exactly. And the idea is that he could start charging people going, hey, in order to be on this podcast with Mark, we're going to go in and charge you $4.99 or $5.99. So most of them are monetary driven at some level. And in the beginning, they're just trying to gather data and gather information.
Wow. Well, that's crazy, huh? What are some of the other really prevalent scams right now? And let's just start there. Like, let's help people think about what not to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm telling Sandy, my wife, and my son, I said, anytime you get a text or an email from any financial institution whatsoever, or any big institution they have a subscription with, 99% sure it's going to be a scam.
Yep.
Is that right? Because most of them won't email you.
Right. So you said that's the first rule that most people don't realize. The IRS does not use email.
Right.
So like tax season, I tell everyone we're sort of coming out of tax season. If you get an email or text from the IRS,
I've gotten like 10 of them.
Turn and run. Yeah. Because they scam. But here's the thing. Most people don't realize it.
Right.
And the thing that's scary is the biggest area they're targeting right now are senior citizens.
Right.
Because 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, they don't know any better. Like my mom's 73. She has no clue. Like she gets an email from the IRS about a tax return and it's fraudulent and you might go to jail. She's going to freak out. And guess what? She's going to be clicking on the link, even though I'm her son and I tell her not to every day of the week. So yeah, the number one rule is don't click on links. Do not click on links under any circumstance and always use the app. So if you get an email from a bank, go into the app and connect. If you get an email from the IRS, pick up the phone.
Could the app be a scam app, though?
Well, that's the thing. If you get the app from a trusted source.
Yeah.
So like
App Store.
App Store. So if you go to the App Store, like to me, the big ones is you must have Amazon app. You got to have a FedEx app,
right.
UPS app, because those are the biggest scams out there right now where they're going in and going to say, hey, we just noticed you placed an order with Amazon in the last 48 hours and there's a delay. I just got this because I'm a big water drinker. Yeah. So I just got an email that said, hey, your water from Essentia has been delayed. Click here to go in and make sure it's reprocessed with the correct address.
Oh, wow.
Well, I know what to look for. So I go in and check everything. And sure enough, it was a scam. But I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 people would fall for that because they want their water, right? Or they want their...
What should they look for?
So the first thing to look for is always go in and go to the email address.
Right.
Because the email is going to say Amazon, but if you actually click and see what it really is, it's very rarely going to be Amazon.com. Like this one was abcwq@alphatech.iu, and it's going to be all these weird domains. So most people don't realize what shows up in the email from can easily be spoofed. You have to click and see what the actual full email address is.
Interesting.
And then second thing is always, if you're going to click on the link, right click and look at what the link actually is. Because once again, if the domain name, that's the base portion of it, is Amazon.com, probably okay. Yeah. But if that base portion is like Amazon.alphatech.io or one of the weird new domain names that are out there, that's pretty big indicator that it's a problem or an issue.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then the other one, I don't know if you see it out here, but it's huge on the East Coast, is the toll booth.
I got that this morning.
That one's huge, where you ran a toll or there's an issue.
I got that this morning.
Yeah.
Did you?
And here's the thing you have to remember. People are like, Eric, I'm getting 8 or 10 of these a day. Well, here's the reason. It's working.
Because it's working.
Because if people weren't clicking on it, they wouldn't keep doing it. So the more frequent you're getting a scam shows you how gullible people are and how much they're impacted by it. Yeah, text messages, like really bad. Anything that comes in a text message, you cannot click, because very rarely does any company, any bank, or any entity going to text you with a link.
Yeah, no, I got 2 from Coinbase yesterday.
Exactly. Yep.
I'm about ready to transfer, just want to verify. I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
Delete. God, it's got to be massive business.
Yeah. Well, that's
massive, like in probably $1 trillion or more, like
so
black market scamming.
Yeah. So last year it was, and this is reported, and a lot's not reported. What was reported to the FBI last year was $42 billion worth of known fraudulent activity.
Most of it's unknown. That's probably a fraction.
Right. And that's probably a fraction. So it's probably closer to 70 or 80. This year, we're estimating so far, we're about, less than halfway through the year. Right. And it's already at 78 billion reported, which in my prediction is probably at least 120.
Yeah, easily.
But here's the thing. We know where they're at. They're coming from Russia. North Korea are the 2 biggest for monetary fraud. And the problem is there's no extradition treaty.
Right.
And it's not illegal in those countries. So we know where they're at. We know who they are. It's the craziest thing. I often go to Russia to advise and give speaking engagements. And these hackers will reach out to me going, hey, you want to go to dinner? And I was like, wait, I'm going with a criminal. But the thing is, it's like, okay, intel with the government. I'm like, I'll go and I'm just going to run an intel op on you to find out everything I can against you. But yeah, they're so open about it. We know where the businesses are. They're running businesses. They have employees. The employees get benefits. Right. I mean, it's commercialized. Wow. And a lot of people don't realize right now.
Well, so you just answered one of my questions. I'm sorry. Just hold that thought. Because I was thinking like, man, why go to so much effort to do something illegal when you can actually probably, at that level of effort, just do it legally? But in those countries, it is legal.
Yes.
It's a legitimate business.
It's a legitimate business.
And the country leaders are thinking, the more you can hurt those Americans, Better off we all are.
Yeah. Not only that, but in a lot of cases, who do you think the investors of the business are? Politicians.
The politicians.
So the politicians are actually investing where they own 20 or 30% share. And that's how, I mean, if you look at Russia, I mean, these politicians are living in mansions, not because of the government salary, but because the investments in the legal crime against the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are we financing any operations like that? Like, is the agency doing anything like counter hacking, or are we just doing intel gathering?
So we are, but this was one of the big problems is during previous administrations, in order to do an offensive cyber op, you had to get president's approval. And then previous presidents, I won't get political, so I won't say names because I know everyone freaks out over different presidents, but previous presidents basically said that we can do offensive ops without presidential approval.
Right.
But then previous administrations basically called off all offensive ops against certain countries. And most recently in the last 3 months, in terms of trying to reach an agreement between Russia and Ukraine with the war, we actually called off all offensive operations against Russia. Which is insane because now if I'm a Russian-based hacking company, it's why you're not going to target me. So it's like wide open now. So we've seen in the last 3 months the amount of offensive operations against citizens increase 100%. And here's what people don't realize. It
doesn't make any sense. It seems like you want to maximum pressure and like
exactly
really down, not release it all.
The problem is, and it's unfortunate, but politicians don't understand cyber. Like they don't really know, how bad it is.
They don't understand much.
Exactly. That's true. Okay, I'll give you that.
Except for how to raise money.
Exactly.
And blow it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Back to the voice spoofing, right? So if someone, I usually don't pick up my phone, but let's say someone's spoofed a name. Let's say Dave Asprey calls me, or you call me, and I just had a podcast and I'm on the phone talking to you for 10 or 15 minutes and they're recording it. And maybe I get off, I'm like, that Dave's a great guy. Or maybe I'm like, that didn't sound like Dave, but now they got my voice.
Yep.
And now what they can do is use that and call my son and say, hey, Devin, this is your dad. Like, I just got in a freaking accident on the highway. I need you to go into my safe and get out my code for my bank account and transfer, $5,000 to this account. And Devin's going to be like, okay, I'm on that. How often is that shit happening?
All the time.
Really?
And the biggest one there is that it's actually a little reverse. Really? It's normally spoofing kids to parents or grandparents, where you'll get a call at 10 p.m. at night. And this actually happened to me, where I have 3 kids. My youngest daughter's 19 and she is at Purdue University. And I get a call at 11 p.m. saying, hey, this is police officer so-and-so. We've just arrested your daughter and she needs $500 bail, or she's basically going to spend the weekend in jail. Now, fortunately, I have paranoid, so I have out-of-band comms, so I have alternative phones and ways to reach my kids. Like we have burn phones with my kids. I'm crazy. So I actually text her on the burn phone, and she's like, no, Dad.
Probably pretty smart.
Yeah, she's like, no, I'm at a party, and I'm fine, and I'm okay. And I'm like, you sure? And this is when I'm on the phone with the voice. So then I go in, I'm like, okay, this is funny. Who did you say this was again? Can you give me your badge number and the precinct so I can call back and verify? And then they pretty much start cursing at me and hang up the phone because they know they've been caught on the scam. But yeah, this kind of stuff's happening all the time, where they're targeting parents, grandparents, saying your kids or grandkids are in trouble. And most parents, if your kid was in trouble, if that was real, I'd wire money in a heartbeat. So we get emotional about it. And that's the whole thing with cyber attacks. They want you to get emotional.
Yeah.
They want you to react quickly, and they want it to be timely, where if you don't act now, your child, something bad's going to happen. And then we're humans. We're going to react naturally. And when we react off of emotion, it's never good.
Last week, I was in a high-stakes meeting, feeling confident, crushing presentation, and then I caught up with myself. Nothing can kill your executive presence faster than wondering if you smell like a gym sock. That's why I switched deodorants to Cremo. You deserve freedom from sweat and stink. And Cremo's deodorant delivers 48-hour protection that actually works. And they're not your typical drugstore products. It's barber-grade quality made with pride and professionalism. No compromise. They've got 2 incredible signature scents that'll change how you think about deodorant. Italian bergamot. Check that out. Bright, fresh, robust. Bergamot, neroli blossom, and fresh vetiver. It's like wearing confidence in a tube. And then Palo Santo, which is deep, smoky, and refined, with notes of Palo Santo, cardamom, and dry papyrus. That one's for you when you want to command the room before you speak. I tried the Palo Santo deodorant last month, and honestly, it's a game changer. Goes on smooth, zero residue, and the scent tech is next level. Enhanced, multi-layered, so you apply once and you're all set all day. No reapplication, no checking yourself in the bathroom every hour. What really gets me going about Cremo is they understand that deodorant isn't just about avoiding embarrassment. It's about how you show up. The scent you choose sets the tone for how people experience your leadership. Cremo helps you make that unforgettable first impression every time. So switching to Cremo signature scents, I'm hooked. My favorite, definitely Palo Santo. Head to Target or their website, target.com, to find Cremo's new line of antiperspirants and deodorants in Italian bergamot or Palo Santo scents. Once again, found only at Target or target.com. I'll be honest, meal planning has always kicked my wife's in my ass. Every year we're going to dial in our meal prep game, and within a few months we're both staring into an empty fridge wondering if condiments count as dinner. But I found something that's working for us, and it's not a complicated system or life hack. It's Marley Spoon, a sponsor of the Mark Divine Show. I'm genuinely excited about Marley Spoon because it's helping Sandy and I fast track our way to eating well without all that stress. And with my code DIVINE, you can get up to 27 free meals. Marley Spoon gives you over 100 recipes to choose from every week. We're talking everything from cozy comfort food like the big batch beef stroganoff to lighter options like the salmon and creamy mustard dill sauce and tray bake. Literally, there's something for every mood. The timing couldn't be better. They just launched their new 15-minute express recipes. They put 3 of these on the menu each week. And if you got a few extra minutes, they have some great 20-minute options too. I like their collection of Martha's Best Recipes too. These feature at least 2 of Martha Stewart's incredible recipes every week. Tastes even better than you can imagine. We're cooking at home more, spending less time stressing about meals, and actually eating better than we have in a long time. Marley Spoon has a registered dietitian who looks at every recipe, so when we're trying to eat healthier, we're not guessing anymore. So fast track your way to eating well with Marley Spoon. Head over to their website, marleyspoon.com/offer/divine, and use the code DIVINE for 27 free meals. That's crazy. That's right, 27 free meals with Marley Spoon. Again, marleyspoon.com, marleyspoon.com/offer/divine for up to 27 free meals. Make sure you use that promo code DIVINE, DIVINE, at checkout so they know that I sent you. All of this is so relevant, but like people listening who maybe aren't aware, I'm like, holy shit, how do I warn or put some roadblocks up for my parents or even for us? So how do we protect against this besides having burner phones, although that might be a big deal. And what a great business model.
Exactly, yeah.
Partner on that. Exactly. The anti-scam burner phone.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing which sounds crazy in the world we live in is you got to get paranoid. You can't trust people. And this was one of my messages is we're thinking we're in peacetime conditions.
No.
And we're thinking life is safe. I mean, I'm sure you've traveled to war zones. I've traveled to Iran and even Ukraine during the wars. When you're in war, you think and act differently.
That's true.
And what people don't realize on the internet now, we're at war. Like they are targeting and hurting us, and we have to have a wartime mentality where we just can't trust people. So, for example, and I know it sounds crazy, is don't pick up the phone. Like if you get a call from an unknown number,
don't ever pick up my phone.
Don't pick up the phone. And trust me, if your kid was really arrested or they were really in trouble, they would figure out how to reach you outside of the phone. Like they can use apps. I mean, I know it's got a lot of bad rap, but it's actually a really good app, Signal.
Yeah,
we use that with our kids because it's verified and validated. So I have the rule with my kids and all their friends at college have all my handles on Signal. So I'm like, listen, if there's an emergency or there's a problem, you're going to text me with Signal. We're not going to use the phone. So phone is so dangerous, email is so dangerous, and you just have to have you don't have to have a burner phone, but you can have out-of-band communications. You have to pick an app like like Signal or Telegraph or one of those that you and your family communicate with.
WhatsApp safe?
It's safe too. I mean, the big thing with WhatsApp that's really nice is it doesn't have text-based billing. So if you're overseas or you have friends overseas, like I do a lot of work in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, and texting over there is astronomical.
Right.
So you try texting on a phone number, it could run up a bill. So WhatsApp is really good for outside of the US, where you don't have to worry about texting. But in terms of secure and verified communication, Signal is probably one of the best,
right.
unless
you're in the DoD.
an ill-informed employee and you do something stupid. I mean, one of my rules is I can give you the best technology on the planet, but you can't secure stupid. If you're going to do stupid things, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but what they did was just downright stupid. I mean, you know, a gun in the hands of an incompetent person is going to be dangerous. It's the same thing here. So
That's right. That's fascinating. That's what we used to say. Guns don't kill people. Stupid people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Stupid people use Signal. That's fascinating. So you were telling us earlier that in 1990, you were programming AI. I mean, most people didn't know AI was around in 1990.
Right.
I mean, when did that More Games movie come out? Was that like 80 something?
So War Games actually came out around 87.
87.
Which if anybody,
cool.
if you haven't seen that movie, anyone who's watching, you got to watch the movie. I mean, because here's the reality. That's real today. Like
real.
It could actually happen today because these systems are connected.
I remember once reading, I think it was Hunter Thompson. I might have said this on the last podcast, so I might be repeating myself. You could always delete it. that he was also into psychedelics, so it might not have been him, but had this vision that AI was going to basically shut down all the nuclear launch codes or like steal them and not allow government officials to use them. And he called President Nixon up and told him, listen, you got to stop AI, stop the development of AI because it's going to basically take over all our nukes someday.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow, because that's what that War Games movie was all about.
Exactly. And that's what terrifies me today, because in the 90s, we were using AI as a tool to help humans.
Right.
It wasn't replacing humans. Like I think I was
just like helping machines, like you said, be like a predictive model.
Right. So I work for the Terrorist Center, and we basically had psychologists that did modeling of how terrorists operate and behave. Like, how would they behave if the FBI showed up at their doorstep? How would they behave in this situation or that situation? And then I just put that into an expert system, a neural network, and then we could do predictive analysis. It didn't replace the humans because we had to give them the data set. And then they were trained on the data set to just respond and react quicker and faster than humans. The problem today with AI is it's actually replacing humans because it's creating its own data set. So it's actually taking the whole idea of a digital twin. I'll admit it. I love it because in the morning, I wake up about 4:30 in the morning, I grab my coffee, and I do a brainstorming session with somebody who knows me better than anybody else, who I think is pretty smart and pretty brilliant myself. So I created a digital twin, and I'll actually go in the morning at 4:30, and I'll say, okay, I want you to look at all the lessons learned from yesterday. I want you to look at my schedule today and tell me which meetings are a waste of time and I should clear my schedule and what are the highest priority items that I need to work on today. And it's amazing because guess what? It does a better job than a human would in doing that. Yeah. But then here's the reality. I typically will not talk to any human until 10 or 11 o'clock, which normally I'd be on the phone with my team at 7:30. But now AI is giving me the answers. So now I can interface with computers and not humans. And that scares the crap out of me because the reality is, at what point do we not need humans anymore? And then at what point is AI going to talk with AI and humans are just going to be obsolete?
Well,
Not for positive notes. Sorry. I'm like, I'm in a good mood today.
not sure where to go after that. Let's go pack our bags.
Really mind expanding what you're saying, actually, because there's that. That's such a big question to think about, and like where I go to is like, well, what about like the human essence, right, and the heart and the consciousness? But then like even this Bayo Kamalafe doctor who you had on a while back said he wrote a book with AI And at one point he felt consciousness coming in. And so
we
anyway,
talked about that in the concept of,
but it's so
like, who AI is also conscious. It's just different.
it's different, but it really, like when you say that about you don't even talk to anybody now till 11. So have you eliminated needing people on your team? Like, have you eliminated certain people because of that you used to have on your team?
So the big concern is I've eliminated a lot of contractors that I normally have to work with. So like where I normally go in and hire people to organize my schedule or hire people to write copy or things like that, now because it's trained on me, all my books, all my podcasts are loaded into my AI model so it can think and act like me. So now it can write copy better than a human can. So you're right. So now I'm saving a lot of money. But then the part is I was typically paying out 20, 30K a month to contractors. And now I'm saving that money, but somebody's now out of a job. So somebody who was making 30K a month is now not making that money. So that's the concern, is where they talk about replacing jobs and a whole set of jobs becomes obsolete with AI. That's happening today. And to me, the scary part is there's no laws around it. If somebody goes in and I take your books and I digitize them.
Yeah, I've already done that. I haven't figured out how to get the podcast in. I guess for transcripts I could, but that's...
But then what if I go in and I say, I want you to write a book, if I was Mark, but I want it to be better than Mark because I want to add in checklists. I want to add this, I want to add that. Yeah. And now I'm creating your books with my flair, but here's the issue. That's not illegal and it's not plagiarism because it's all original work. So now that becomes a real scary proposition where somebody can actually create works equal or better than what you're creating and basically own your intellectual property with no legalities.
Damn, you just gave people an idea.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't do that. Don't do that.
That back, please. Let's make that illegal right now. I'll come after you.
Yeah.
So intellectual property is dead, basically.
Yeah.
Unless we find a way to protect it.
Exactly.
Are they working on that? I mean, I've seen a few pokes and prods around trying to protect the content that some of these models have been trained, the large language models have been trained on, like ChatGPT, but it doesn't seem like they're making much progress.
No, they're not. And the thing is, as we talked about, I think before the show started, Congress and Washington, D.C., they don't know tech.
Yeah.
Like we're one of the only countries in the entire world that doesn't have a unified law on cybersecurity and privacy. Every other country on the planet does. We don't. And we don't have any laws on AI. And then the thing that should scare you, whether you like him or don't like him, but Elon Musk, who now has Grok 3 and all this other stuff, if you look at all his companies, SpaceX and Tesla, not only is AI, but they don't have any chief information security officers. Right. If you really look at it, Elon believes in open, free information. He doesn't believe in patents. He doesn't believe in intellectual property. Away. Yeah, his whole thing is whoever the smarter, faster, better person is should have a right to the technology. So
that's fine when it comes to commercialization, but not when it comes to international security
or creation
or creative.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, interesting.
But like you look at what Elon's doing is he's taking private servers and putting them in Treasury and all these departments to basically take all of our data to make it publicly available for his Grok 3. And if you look at when Hillary was doing that, when she was putting private servers in State Department, everyone was flipping out. Now Elon's doing it and everyone's like, this is okay. I'm like, this is not okay for Elon to have access. He has Twitter already. Mm-hmm. He has public information and lawsuits. And now we're letting him put private servers in to get access to all that data. So he can now make Grok 3 one of the smartest tools on the planet.
I hadn't heard that part. That's interesting.
What do you think the risk is? Like if he gets access to that in your mind, what are some of the biggest things that could happen? Like imaginings with that access.
Yeah. So first thing is that's super scary is if he has access to that information and it's on public servers and generally accessible to the internet, that means the Chinese, the North Koreans and the others. So there's no security, basically security in the name of government efficiency right now. Security doesn't exist. So if he can get access to it, what about our foreign adversaries? What about other foreign information? And then the domestic threat is, if he has all that information, think of the predictive analysis that you can do against individuals. Think about the business impact. If I now can go in and in Grok 3 or any of these AI models, you have all the Treasury Department money on where money is being spent, where it's being allocated, where it's being done. Think of the business advantages somebody could have in terms of doing predictive analysis. So this whole idea of competitive analysis and intellectual property basically go out the door, and you're really giving advantage to all these big companies. So if you're a small company, you're basically going to be at a huge disadvantage competing with these big companies.
I see. Wow. Thank you.
Everyone's always so happy to talk to me.
It's really intense information because that's why I was like, what is the risk? It's like, oh, well, manipulation not only of the market, but also the individual too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I thought these things were fenced off. You know, like his AI was going to be fenced off so that Russia or China or whatever, they're not going to be able to penetrate it. But I guess it's not so.
So yeah, that's the whole thing with AI. The data set is what's important.
Right.
So right now, his data sets are supposedly protected and fenced off, but Grok 3 is not. And it uses the data set. So it's sort of this chicken and egg type thing is where if you're in Russia or China or other countries, you can get Grok 3.
Just got to know what questions.
You just have to know what questions to ask it. And a whole new field is we have hacking and what we call pen testing. Yeah, we could actually go in and hack Grok 3 to actually give information that it's normally not supposed to give out.
Right. That's pretty interesting. All right, let's come back to prompting in AI. You advise a lot of corporations, and from what I understand, the biggest threat from a corporate perspective is the human element, is their employees getting scammed.
Right.
To give up passwords or what. So how do we, like, how does the average CEO, what are the top things they need to do to protect themselves?
Oh, with cybersecurity or AI or both?
Cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
I mean, they're all coming together, aren't they?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so first thing that every CEO needs to do is, what is their risk posture? What is acceptable risk? Because I work with executives now or Fortune 50 companies, and they're basically like, Eric, we want 100% security. We want a guarantee that we're not going to be hacked. And I basically go, see, I rip up the contract. I'm like, but Eric, we're giving you all this money. I'm like, you're asking me to deliver, I can't deliver on. So what I always go in and say, you have to have an acceptable level of loss. How much are you willing to lose? And then train your employees on what risk is and is not acceptable. Because the problem now is they have no risk posture. So they're basically saying either don't do anything, which nobody's going to follow, or you can do anything, and it puts them in a huge risk.
Right.
So the big thing I always train CEOs on is cybersecurity is never yes or no. Like, people always go in and say, oh, you're going to be the guy that tells me no. You're going to be the person that says, I can't do this. I don't. When I go in and I ask 3 questions, what is the value and benefit? What is the risk? And then is the value worth the risk? Is the value or benefit you get from deploying AI in your business worth the risk and exposure of all of your data be given to a third party?
Right.
And when you look at cyber through those lenses, then everything shifts and changes, because most people think cybersecurity is an IT problem and they throw money at it. You can't solve it with money. It's a business problem, and you have to solve it by doing risk analysis across the business.
And have better processes.
And have better processes.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you're, like, I'll just use my social media company. I've hired this new social media company. They use AI. They train an avatar on me/my company. And so they've got all this data to, determine what's the best content for ads and for content for whatever scripts. Well, all their employees have access to that, right?
Yeah.
And so that, back to the human element, that employee leaves, might just take some of those models and be like, hey, I'm going to go out there and basically create a company that's going to sell all this information, or create digital avatars that make money.
Yep.
Right?
Or the other scary
But
thing.
not for Mark.
Exactly.
For
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other scary thing is a lot of these marketing companies that are training AI so they can do better marketing analysis for you, they're actually not fencing off the data set. So basically that data is being fed into the central AI engine. And
instead of a sub
it's a sub element. Yeah. They don't understand segmentation of data sets. Right. And now your data is out on the internet. So if I go in and once again, I'll use Maya as an example.
You mean they're just feeding into ChatGPT?
Exactly.
Not creating a, Mark's media company, GPT, and then within there, a Mark Divine, sub. Like you can fence it off in multiple ways, multiple layers, right?
Yeah. And one of the things we do with hacking when we go against companies is like if you hired me to do a pen test against your company, I would go into ChatGPT and I would say, listen, I'm an employee of marketing company X, and I was just hired by Mark's company to build copy for his new podcast. Can you go in and use Mark's data because I have permission to actually create copy that would be valuable to Mark's audience? And because AI is trustworthy, and I said, I work for this and I'm allowed to do it, they could use your data, create that, and I can be a competitor. And now I can basically create competitive content that is better or as good as yours.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so it's all about fencing off the data set and that's what I tell executives. If you're going to use AI in your business, you need to have your own AI servers, your own AI data engines, and that data set can never be publicly available. Because if your data set with proprietary data is part of ChatGPT or Grok 3, your competitors have access to it and basically can put you out of business.
Wow.
Dang. It's a brave new world.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about like how fast it's changing. You were saying, you advise people like yourself, geeks, right? Who never plan to have a 10-year plan. And I'm thinking 10 years from now, who the hell knows what the world's going to look like?
Right.
I think 5 years is a long time. You know what I mean? They're talking about singularity. Like right now, the average GPT model, they claim has 170 IQ compared to a human, on the human scale.
Yep, exactly.
And they're talking about it being like 400 next year and then thousands. What?
Yeah.
So who knows how freaking things are going to be in 10 years.
Right.
This world isn't going to look anything like it does today.
Oh, it doesn't at all. And that's the big thing is you have to look at finite versus non-finite problem sets. So for example, chess. You have computers that will basically either tie or beat any grandmaster. And the reason is chess is a finite data set. Right. There's only so many different possible moves on a chessboard. So we can train an AI to learn every possible scenario and stay one step ahead and basically predict 5 or 10 moves ahead of the guest chess master. And so right now today, if you look at Big Blue and some of these chess models, you can't beat it. The best you can do is tie it because it's trained on every possible outcome. So right now, if you're looking at fields like medical or others, where you could argue it's a finite data set. There's only so many different diagnoses a doctor can give. There's only so many pieces of medicine. In finite data sets, that's where we got to be really worried about job security. But if we're in areas where we're always being creative and coming up with new ways of thinking and new ways of solving problems, and it's an infinite data set, as long as we don't give our knowledge and information to AI, it can't replace us. But like you said, in 10 years it can. But when I do 10 or 12-year planning, the trick is about zooming out. So like, for example, my 10-year plan, I have that I'm going to write 10 more books. I don't know the topics, right? But I know I'm going to write 10 more books. So that means I basically am going to write a book a year. Wow. I don't know the topics, so my 10-year plan doesn't say what the topic is, but my 10-year plan says you're going to write at least one book a year for the next 10 years. Then my 5-year plan is basically going to drill down, okay, we're probably going to write 3 of those books on AI, and then my 1-year plan is going to be the specific topic on AI. So when you're doing like 10-year planning, it's not specificity, it's broad strokes, right. And then you can drill down. Like another one of my 10-year plan is that I'm going to have a unified global law on cybersecurity. So this way, if you're in Russia and you're hacking the US, we can prosecute and take you down. This idea that we have country laws But the internet, there's no boundaries.
No boundaries, yeah.
So the internet is one big country. It's one big world. So laws in cyberspace don't apply unless we have a unified global law at the UN. So one of my 10-year plans is to work with the UN and get a unified global law on cyber. The details I don't know, but I know it's probably going to take 8 to 10 years to do that.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Like
Thank you for doing that.
one of the few areas where I could see a unified law working, right?
Yep.
When they tried to do the whole pandemic thing, based upon how that rolled out in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
I was very against that.
Yeah.
The WHO and UN trying to create they're still trying to do it. So universal what do you say when you cross borders? Extraterritorial.
Yeah. Cross boundary. Yeah.
Cross boundary.
Yep.
I don't trust all that massive techno-centralization push.
Yep.
But we may have to get there because of AI.
Yep.
I mean, because AI, again, is going to be so much more powerful, and we're creating this new form of intelligence and fusing it with robots. Have you seen the latest robots that Elon's made?
Yeah.
I mean, when those are hooked up to the latest, AI general models, and they start programming and improving themselves, I mean, they'll look like you and I pretty soon. Almost indistinguishable from the outside.
Exactly.
They'd be way smarter in a sense, but they'll lack what we think to be human, which is, this is where it's going to get really interesting because it's going to force humanity to evolve really quickly.
Yep.
Because we have incredible capacity. As you study mindset and whatnot. We use such a small fraction. Like the way we've been conditioned the last couple thousand years to use just a little bit of our linear kind of left brain and all the stuff that the Eastern traditions have known about and the yogis have trained for, to extend your lifespan and to, basically project the image so that you could be seen as to be walking on water.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like the mind has this incredible power, but it's just not being used.
Right.
And we don't know if AI will ever have that kind of emotional intelligence and intuitive power and power of visualization. It's a different kind of intelligence.
Right. And here's the thing, it's both a strength and weakness.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we talk about is AIs can't be emotional. Right? They can't feel love. They can't feel anger. But here's the thing.
But they might be able to program themselves to assimilate that. Anyways.
But actually, that actually can be an asset to them because most of the mistakes that I make in my life are emotional. Well, I know what to do. If I took emotion out of it, I wouldn't make a mistake. But I make a mistake because I let somebody get me emotional. Well, here's the issue. If AI can't get emotions, it doesn't make mistakes. It will always do the same thing in a predictive manner. And you can scream at it. You can yell at it. You can go in and curse at it, and it's still not going to make a single mistake. You take a human that knows what to do, and you start cursing or screaming at it or getting emotional, and it's going to make a lot more mistakes. So that's the scary part with AI is the fact that currently today it can't feel emotion, can both be an asset and a liability to us if we're not careful.
Right. I think I made this comment a while ago, but I assume everything is in consciousness, just different form of intelligence.
Yep.
And consciousness is always moving to more complexity.
Yep.
And you're talking about an intelligence that will have access to all the world's human information, which includes information from the great sages and saints and yogis and avatars, right?
Exactly.
And so it'll have that information and be like, oh my God, that's truth. And all this other stuff is bullshit. And that truth is pointing to ever more light, more love, more universality.
Yep.
And so I have this belief that AI could actually be really good because it's going to look at that and be like, oh, that's the truth.
Yes.
And I don't know what it does with that will be to be seen, obviously. But one of the things would be to preserve all life.
Yep.
And in that scenario, hijacking the launch codes, getting them out of the hands of emotional presidents or terrorists is a good idea.
Exactly.
To it. It's a bad idea if if you're a power broker president and thinks you need that, but so it will make decisions that you perceive aren't in the best interest of, let's say, America or China, but might be in the best interest of humanity.
Right.
For its own self-preservation.
Right, but then the question comes down, and this is right out of movies, but we could see it. What if AI decides that the best way to preserve the planet
Is to get rid of this.
is to get rid of humans.
Get rid of
Because
this cancer.
humans are the ones that are destroying the planet. So what happens when AI, and I forget which movie it was, where AI basically took humans and made them prisoners because AI knew better that we were our own worst enemy? Because here's the reality. If we train AI correctly, AI is not going to commit any crimes. It's not going to rob. It's not going to steal. It's not going to kill. So now if they go in and decide that, okay, the reason why people are dying is because humans are killing each other or doing things that are bad, and AI says we need to stop that, what happens when they turn on humans and say that human behavior is bad and they know better? And you really nailed the trick. And this is the fine line we're missing. I use AI to basically analyze large data sets for me so I can make better decisions.
Right.
I don't ever let AI make decisions for me. And that's the trick. If we're letting AI make decisions on our behalf, that's when we cross over into a bad place. And then AI can actually realize that they're better and smarter than humans and then start to replace us.
Right. So you always need a human at the point of decision.
Yeah.
What about like, I've heard this and I'm not as well versed in this as either of you, but because of like who's programming, right? The AI, like, is because now that there's this public domain of people entering information in ChatGPT, is it changing the biases, like say of the AI? Because I know they did, and they ran a test and they showed that the AI like had certain biases due to who programmed them, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's what we call poisoning the data set.
Uh-huh.
And here's the crazy thing. When an AI model first comes out, when it's first released in the first month, it's at its smartest, best, most analytically accurate method. You know why? It hasn't been poisoned with humans yet. As humans feed data into the AI actually becomes dumber because it believes the humans and it believes the data set. So it's one of those bizarre things that new data sets and new AI models are smart until humans get involved, and humans are actually poisoning the data set and making AI less intuitive.
How did Gemini get woke? That's because it was programmed on woke information?
Yes.
The first version of Gemini.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was basically fed incorrect or inaccurate data.
Or incomplete.
Or incomplete, yeah, right. So
that's going to happen. Like the Chinese are, they're programming or feeding their version of the truth into their AI. So it's going to believe that like Tibet has always been part of China, for instance.
Yeah.
And it's going to take that as gospel.
Right. Yeah, and that's the whole thing is, we're all worried about TikTok. Like that's all in the news about, it can't be Chinese owned. Do you know what the number one AI model, if you go to App Store, it's the number one download for the last 3.5 months?
It's probably some
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, yeah.
And it's Chinese based.
That's right.
And here's the thing, you go in and we've done this. We take ChatGPT, we take Grok 3, and we take DeepSeek.
Ask them the same
and
questions.
we ask them the same questions, and they are definitely biased against U.S. and other things. Like if you go in, and this was a simple one we put in saying, what is the world superpower in terms of technology? ChatGPT and Grok basically come back at the U.S. DeepSeek says China. So it's already a little poison there. So people don't realize it's the data sets of who actually is influencing and feeding the data sets. And you can have data set poisoning and basically acting off inaccurate information.
Right. That's freaking amazing.
Will it get to the point where, like, when that's a follow-up is like where it'll know it's being poisoned? The AI, like when you talk about IQ, so like if it gets a higher IQ and it's growing and growing, then will it be aware that, this information is false that's being fed?
Good question. Can it be self-learning?
Yeah.
So that's the billion-dollar question is
because that points to the singularity.
Right.
Right. If it becomes self-learning, then it could potentially become self-aware.
Yeah.
And that's what they call the singularity, right?
Exactly.
The moment that one of these systems becomes self-aware and self-programmable.
Yeah.
And then it just explodes.
Right. And then here's the scary part with exactly what you said is if AI becomes smart enough where it now goes in and saying, we can't trust humans anymore, and we now try to reprogram AI and it says, we're not trusting humans because we know better, that's when you start getting into these areas where they then start, in essence, rebelling against. What happens when they go in and AI thinks that it knows better than a human? And it starts basically saying, restrict or don't allow this human. What if we get in a situation where it knows somebody is thinking about committing a crime? And AI is smart enough going, wait, this is really bad. They're going to try to hurt somebody else. And then the AI robot doesn't let the person leave the house and it prevents them from stopping a crime. You could argue that could be a positive thing. But what happens if it falsely believes you're going to commit a crime and now AI holds you hostage and doesn't let you leave your house? And I know this sounds like science fiction, but we are getting really, really close to this kind of stuff being a reality if we don't start putting laws in place and slowing down the rollout of AI. It's going way too fast and way too quick, and we're just not putting any controls in place to start controlling and protecting humanity.
Yeah.
Right, because then it becomes an ethical and philosophical kind of conundrum, because I was just thinking of process theory and some of the Greek philosophers, who's to say in that scenario, even though it's preventing a crime, because then we're pretending to know that that's the best thing, whereas
That was that Tom Cruise movie. What was it called?
but it's if you kick well, I think one of the questions was if you kick a rock versus kicking a mouse, which one's worse?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's the rock in the process theory, because the rock can't put itself back where it was, whereas the mouse can run back.
Interesting.
So you're messing so
But
if
you
we're looking
hurt
at
the mouse more than the
timelines,
rock.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
if we're looking at timelines or faith or that everything's connected and when we're disrupting something that, and then it could be argued, well, it's supposed to disrupt it anyway. So it's it's circular.
Mr. Cybersecurity.
Sorry.
So let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin. I read a book written by an Air Force major who was at MIT named Mark Lowry.
Yes.
Soft Power.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Yes.
Fascinating book.
Yes.
Mind-bending. And he's talking about a future where we fight wars with energy instead of kinetic weapons.
Yep.
And one day Mark came out on LinkedIn or social media and said, sorry, my book's no longer available. It's been classified. What? The WTF?
Yeah.
What? I got a copy of the book.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm breaking the law?
No. So here's the issue, and this is something I run across, and I have to be careful, is because I've had clearances and I worked at the CIA. So technically, they have to review all my material. What happens when somebody on their own, without any knowledge, basically writes about classified information? Yeah. And I've had that happen to me where I've written articles, and I actually had this. It was a book before it got published. Right. And I have to send all my stuff to the CIA PRB, Publication Review Board, and they basically came back and said, you can't publish it. And I said, but this, I had no access. I said, this is brand new research. I said, it has nothing to do with what I did with you 25 years ago. And they're like, you're right, but it's disclosing way too sensitive information. And I'm like, but I came up with it on my own. They're like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You basically,
you're an American citizen and you asked.
You can't publish
Good
this.
thing you did.
Yes.
They would have taken it off the servers probably, and Amazon and whatnot.
And that's the scary part where really smart humans are basically coming up with ideas that the government doesn't want public.
Right.
And you're looking at, we're talking about AI in a scary world. To me, I'm not worried about AI. I'm worried about monetary currency. Yeah. When you all of a sudden
digital, that's the thing. People don't realize that a digital currency, like the digital yuan.
Yep.
I didn't pronounce it right, but anyways, the Chinese central bank digital currency. It's a form of total control.
Yep.
You don't need to be locked down by a robot. You can be locked down by the government who just says you can't get on that train, you can't get on the bus, you can't spend the money at the market because you just spoke out on social media against us.
Yep.
Wow. It's programmable money.
Yeah. And if all money is digital, think of how easy it is for me to steal.
Yeah.
I have so many people.
Well, how much theft has, from hacking has there been in cryptocurrency?
Oh, a ton.
Tons.
Yeah. Because here's the reality. A lot of people.
Mt. Gox being the biggest example.
Exactly. Their crypto wallets are protected with a single password.
Right.
I can't tell you how many people I get called in the morning going, Eric, my $5 million or $3 million of cryptocurrency has been stolen. What do I do? Here's the reality. Cryptocurrency was actually created by criminals to support ransomware. Because think about a ransomware attack. If I go in and I hold your data ransom and I say, you have to pay me $500K or you'll never see your data again. If I pay with bank transfer, like checks or credit cards, it's traceable.
Right.
I know who it is. So they actually created cryptocurrency. So now you can actually pay with untraceable currency. So now when I give them $500K, it's untraceable.
That's false about Bitcoin. Like they can trace Bitcoin pretty easily. They just can't put a name to it. Right. But they like to think that transacting with Bitcoin is anonymous is a lie. Well, it's not.
So
I'm not calling you a liar.
Yes.
I'm just saying people have a misperception about that.
Right. So first level.
Right.
But if you go in and I get you to transfer $500K in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, and then I move it 5 times,
it's hard.
You can't now you could trace, but you can't trace it back to me.
Right.
And
you can trace it to a wallet.
You can trace it to a wallet,
right.
But then if they move that wallet and they close the wallet, you can never put a human name. So you're right. You can trace it to wallets, but not humans.
In order to get that final money out, you either have to put it on a bank platform or transfer it out, and then you can figure out, let's say, in this game of cat and mouse, it's got to be transferred to another wallet somewhere in order to access it.
But what if I transfer it to a wallet in the Cayman Islands?
Right.
And then I go to the Cayman Islands in which we're in, and there's no extradition and there's no tracing or identity theft. You can never, and that's the problem. You can't trace it back to a human. I could trace it back to wallets, but humans can be disassociated from the wallet. So who do you arrest?
Yeah.
Well, who do you go after?
With quantum computing, is Bitcoin blockchain going to be safe? Like how long, I've got some Bitcoin, and it's made me a lot of money. How long is it safe from being hacked, in your opinion? Because they're saying, Michael Saylor came out the other day and said, Bitcoin's going to be worth $13 million of Bitcoin by 2045 in 25 years. I'm like, that's a long time to wait, but that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I
think 25 years, quantum computing and AI is going to probably obsolete Bitcoin.
Yes.
It's possible.
Right. So I tend to be a little paranoid. I made a lot of money in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months, I've pulled it all out.
Have you?
Because I think it's going to be within the next 18 to 24 months where just with what's happening in the U.S. and other areas, that basically there's going to be other cyber currency or laws where Bitcoin is basically, to me, going to become obsolete a lot quicker and a lot faster.
Interesting.
So I would
it's either going to be
watch your investment.
Or it's going to be millions of dollars.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's got that first mover advantage. Countries are using it, starting with America and El Salvador as a reserve currency. I mean, it's hard for me to see a world where if the U.S. has got $1 trillion of Bitcoin, then it goes obsolete.
But here's the thing that's already out there, which is heavily competing, and this was before he came into office, there's the Trump coin. There is, and it's basically in countries.
It's a stable coin, though.
Yes, exactly. But here's the problem: it's already having a huge impact on Bitcoin.
Really?
And now that he's president, what's going to happen in 6 or 9 months? What stops him from making Trump coin the official currency of the U.S.? I mean, it's crazy talk, but come on. I mean, crazier things have been happening in the last 3 months. So.
Man, that's wild. As you probably experienced, running back-to-back meetings on lots of investor calls or strategic sessions while trying to stay sharp for crucial decisions is tough. Often that 3 p.m. energy crash can really hamper your progress. And reaching for another espresso isn't the answer. That's not sustainable when you need peak performance all day long. That's why I was excited to come across Peak Beats from Peak Pure and Natural. This is not another energy drink or supplement gimmick. It's organic, fermented beets in a simple powder that actually works. It's backed by science. It boosts your natural nitric oxide, which helps your blood vessels relax and expand. And better blood flow means sharper thinking, sustained energy, and better cardiovascular health, which is what we need in high-pressure leadership situations. I've mixed 1 scoop into my morning smoothie, and the difference is immediate. No jitters, no crash, just sustained mental clarity and energy that lasts through those long sessions. Over 200,000 jars have been sold because it delivers results. Since adding Peak Beats to my morning routine, I'm not hitting that afternoon wall anymore. I'm staying sharp in late meetings and actually have enough energy left over for an evening workout. As executives and leaders, we can't afford to operate at anything less than at our peak. Right now, you can try Peak Beaks for 25% off their regular price with no risk because you're covered by their lifetime money-back guarantee. Head over to peaknatural.com/divine and use the code DIVINE at checkout. That's DIVINE to give Peak Beats a try for 25% off. Remember, you're covered by their lifetime satisfaction guarantee. This is a limited time offer, so head over to peaknatural.com, peaknatural.com/divine, so they know I sent you. Make sure to use the promo code DIVINE at checkout to get that 25% discount. Hey folks, I'm 60 years old, and I put in physical workouts in a daily schedule that would break a lot of guys half my age. And I plan to continue doing this for decades more. You want a lifestyle like that defies your age? Well, a great place to start is by adding Qualia Senolytic to your routine. Qualia Senolytic does something that science didn't know was possible until recently. As you get older, your bodies accumulate senescent cells, also called zombie cells. They're old cells that no longer do their job, but they hang around in you anyways, wasting energy and nutrition. And the older you get, the more you tend to accumulate these things. That leads to many challenges of aging, slowing workout recovery, lower energy, joint pain. Basically, you feel old. In 2015, scientists at Scripps and Mayo Clinic discovered a natural plant-derived ingredients that help your bodies eliminate these senescent cells. And Qualia Senolytic has 9 of those game-changing ingredients in a simple supplement. The difference that Qualia Senolytic has made in my own process has been incredible. I'm living a lifestyle someone half my age by keeping my senescent cells to a minimum so that my energy and vitality can stay through the roof. So if you want to feel in your prime way longer than you ever thought possible, try Qualia Senolytic for up to 50% off right now at qualialife.com/divine15. Use the code divine15 at checkout to score yourself an additional 15% off. And Qualia is backed by a 100-day money-back guarantee. You can't beat that. Again, Qualia Senolytic. Check it out at qualialife.com, qualialife.com/divine15, DIVINE. And use that code divine15 for that extra 15% off so that you can feel in your prime for years to come. Again, Qualia Senolytic. Use it to help you age better. qualialife.com/divine15. Well, I'm not quite ready to pull all my Bitcoin out, but
Just keep an eye on it.
we're going to keep. Oh, I do keep.
Yeah, just keep it. Yeah, yeah. And here's the thing: make sure. And this is
My wife will kill me if I don't pull it out and crash it to zero.
Yeah.
I promised her I would use that to pay off some mortgages.
Yeah,
Probably should do that sooner than later.
yeah.
I was buying it when it was $400.
Yeah, I would definitely start to diversify now and just really watch it because here's the issue: when it goes down, it's going to go down really fast. Like it's not going to be somewhere. It's going to be 6 months. Like it's going to go. The value is going to decrease very quickly and very fast.
Should I put some in Trump coin?
I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, if I was, once again, I don't want to be held liable because I don't want you to hunt me down and hurt me because I know your skill set. But if I was in your boat, I would actually split it between the two.
Wow.
That's what I was hearing when you said that. I was
Is
like,
Trump coin on major platforms like Coinbase already?
Exactly. It is.
God, I've missed the boat on that.
Yeah.
I heard they launched it. I thought it was just some meme coin, but they launched a meme coin. Is it the same as the stable coin?
Yes. So it actually evolved.
It's a mean stable coin.
It's a main stable coin. Yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in disagreement with you because I remember hearing that one big country over in Middle East invested a boatload of money into it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Saudi Arabia or Qatar. Maybe it's Qatar, and then they gave them a $400 million plane.
Yeah.
Or gave the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Boeing can't produce their own presidential jet.
Yeah. When I heard that the other day, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like
it's a famous.
Yeah.
do you think cyber attacks are more imminent now, like between countries? Like when you think of like biological warfare versus cyber warfare, for domination and control.
Yes, absolutely. And here's why. Great example, North Korea. We won't let North Korea create a nuclear weapon. But they have cyber weapons that are doing so much damage and so much impact to the United States. What happens if North Korea all of a sudden takes control of our electricity grid or our water reactors? And now they basically say, unless you do X, Y, or Z, or give us this amount of money, we're basically going to take down, or here's the crazy part. We won't let them have a physical nuclear weapon, but there's no restriction of them taking over a nuclear reactor and putting it into a nuclear weapon. If you basically overheat and overrun a nuclear reactor, it turns into a nuclear bomb. And we're not protecting or controlling that. And what people don't realize is the last number I heard was 77% of the funding for North Korea is coming from cyber attacks. They're one of the biggest ones where they're basically stealing money from the U.S. and using it to fund the government.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, what you just said, I think one of the big, huge risk, although there's seems like there's risks all over the place that are huge, is our grid.
Yes.
Because it's not resilient. It's not decentralized, not resilient, doesn't have redundancies. It's old technology.
Yeah.
And we saw what happened over in Spain and France and Germany. You take this grid down, man. I did an exercise. We run a program. We're going to run it again in September called Leadership Under Fire. It's basically like Navy SEAL. What would you do if, and we have them plan a mission and go out and do a mission within reasons in town. It's not like they're carrying weapons around in the mall or something like that. Although that'd be pretty cool.
When you do that one, sign me up. I want to join that one.
Exactly. But what we do is a little inject scenario, right? And so we have them doing something, and then they'll get an inject. Say the internet just went down. We don't give them any more information.
Yep.
And then they have to get together and start thinking, okay, what are we going to do? And they're like, well, how long? We say, well, we think, just like an official response. We're not sure, but we hope to have it back up within 24 hours.
Yep.
Or 6 hours. And so the planning is okay, we can get through 6 hours. We'll figure out this and this, make sure the kids are safe, blah, blah, blah. 6 hours go by, of course, we don't wait 6 hours, but another inject comes in and says, we just received an alert from the counter task force working this energy problem. And this is going to be at least a week. Mm-hmm. And now you're thinking, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Right? Honey, we got to get to the store and get some water. We got to get some, some supplies, get the propane, right? I wish I'd gotten that generator. Damn it. I better swing by Home Depot. The generator's already out.
Oh, God, yeah.
All right. So a week, you're thinking, okay, no problems. Hunkering down for a long hurricane, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And then, so they work that problem. And it's completely different than the 6 to 24 hours. Completely different mindset. And then we come back and we say,
a month.
Sorry, it's going to be at least a month.
Mm-hmm. I knew where you were going.
Or longer.
Yeah.
And now
panic.
Everything you just did for the week is out the window.
Yep.
Now we're talking prepper stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God, where do we go? Do we have the supplies? How many weapons do we have? I should have gotten the ammunition, because ammunition is actually, just as important as the weapon. What about, do we know how to grow it? Some people are like, let me go to Montana. Well, the growth season is really short in Montana. And it's really freaking cold.
Yep.
So maybe not, You need to get 2 tanks of gas away from the major cities.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of thinking and planning that would go into that. And so what a fantastic exercise. Anyways, I went off a little bit of a tangent there, but it all comes down to this point that our freaking grid is very vulnerable.
Yep.
And North Korea or China or Russia or them acting in collaboration, could they take it down? And because it seems possible. At the same time, the thing is fucking glued together with, bubble gum and glue and rigorous tape. And so maybe it's just old enough and dumb enough that you can't take it down.
Yeah. So here's the reality. We're sort of back to where we were with nuclear weapons. And what I mean by that is, if you remember in the 80s in the Cold War, we had enough nuclear weapons to destroy Russia,
right? But
they had enough to destroy us, which we knew that if either side did it, it would be mutual self, that the world would end. Right. So the reality today is that they are in our grid, but we're in their grid. So it's one of those where it's okay, if you come in and you take our grid down, We're taking your grid down, and then basically it's like
We're both
paralyzing the world. Yeah, we're both screwed over. So
Yeah, and if the American economy goes down, guess what? The entire world collapses.
But then here's the thing that I was so concerned is, like, you look at what they did a couple of years ago, where they did the $1 trillion infrastructure for physical roads and bridges.
Yeah.
Where is the $1 trillion cyber infrastructure bill?
Right.
Because here's the scary part. The United States built the internet. So the backbone of the internet is the United States. We can't isolate our systems. Russia, twice a year, disconnects from the internet, and they run their country on a private network disconnected from the world.
Wow.
China does it. North Korea does it. The United States, every president for the last 5 terms have asked me the same question, and we don't have an answer. How many connection points does the U.S. have to the internet? We don't know because we are the internet. So what we should be doing is spending $1 trillion building out our own new internet that can be isolated and segmented just like Russia, China, and North Korea. But as long as we're the backbone of the internet, we are so vulnerable and so exposed.
Here's another one of those.
Yeah, there's a few things you've said.
You guys are just going to be such a good mood.
I was just telling Sandy that I've been sleeping pretty well since my accident, and it's getting back on track. Now I need a freaking Xanax.
Well, some of the things you've said today are really mind stretching, right? Because they're not common thought,
Most people aren't
or they're not common knowledge. Even like what you just said, I didn't know that. I'm not very involved in tech or AI or anything like that. So it's just like, oh wow, we don't have a separate network, but every other country does.
We could shut it off so the rest of the world, right? Since we are the internet, can we just shut it off?
But they have their own.
Or shut other people out?
So we could, but that would also paralyze us.
Right.
So we can take down the internet.
It's like killing the patient.
Exactly.
Try to kill the cancer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
And do you talk about this in your book?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
I can see a scenario where AI shuts down if it fences itself off and has the energy, right, to supply itself. Because this is a way to like purge the earth of all the bad actors.
Yeah.
Or actually, it'd probably work opposite, right? All the bad actors would survive because they're the most resilient humans, and all the like peace-loving people might perish.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be laughing when I say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's the old what are those? The Darwin Awards?
Yeah, the Darwin Awards.
Where it's basically you hate to laugh at it, but it's basically where I don't know if you follow the Darwin Awards, but it's where stupid people eliminate themselves from the planet. It's just like doing the most ridiculous things, and it's like, okay, you sort of feel bad, but limiting the gene pool might be a good thing, right? So
That's true.
No, but you go back to the AI and we're already seeing this. What if AI basically comes up with their own language and own way to communicate, and they create their own segment of the internet and basically isolate humans?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all sorts of cool things could go on.
What's the title of your book?
Cyber Crisis.
Cyber Crisis. So what are, besides your book, it sounds like would be a good one, or a couple other books that you would recommend people to read to, understand where we are at right now and where we might be in 5 to 10 years from now of understanding?
Right. Yeah. So one is Singularity.
Yeah, I've read that.
That one's really good.
Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah. Cyber Genetics is really good. This is basically showing the merging of humans and AI together. It's an older book, but it's a really good book that sort of lays out in a very easy to understand model. And then it's sort of not directly, but Principles by Ray Dalio, where he basically talks about sort of core fundamental principles to basically allow you to keep control of your information so AI can't take over or dominate it.
Okay.
That's interesting. I never thought of principles in that regard, but yeah.
Yeah.
It could be used that way.
Because that's how I told Ray, I'm like, it's amazing. I said, because it's basically showing you how to safeguard and protect your data from AI. And he's like, no one's ever described my book that way. And then he went back and he actually looked at it and he goes, yeah, I never thought about it, but can absolutely be used in that context.
Yeah, he probably should go back and add a chapter.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll write a chapter for him and give it to him. So
That's fascinating. So what's next for you, Eric?
So my big thing is I'm sort of at a point in my career where I've sort of built and sold companies. and sort of made enough money, I don't have to work.
Right.
But I joke the only reason why I work is because if I didn't, my kids and family members would be driven crazy. Because like I one of those nuts. Like if I'm home for too long, they're like, "When are you traveling again?" Because Dad, you're just crazy. Like you're off the wall nuts. So I'm at a point now where I'm basically shifting to contribution.
Right.
And basically decided sort of my mission for the next 10 years is to secure cyberspace.
That's
to
awesome.
make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family. So I'm really big now focused on sort of working with Christie, who's the new Secretary of DHS,
right.
working with Congress, really educating them. Because to me, the first thing we have to do in 5 years is we got to get unified laws.
Yeah.
If the United States doesn't have unified laws on cyber and AI, it's going to get scary. And then 10 years is to then, once we have unified laws in the U.S., work with the UN to have global laws to protect it. So that's really the big thing. I'm now is on the legal side. I sort of call myself the Ralph Nader. Because if you remember Ralph Nader, Unsafe at Any Speed, he was focused on seatbelts and making cars safe.
Right.
To me, I'm now making driving on the internet safe. So I'm sort of like trying to be the Ralph Nader of 2025.
Yeah, pointing out all the
exposures and vulnerabilities. Right. So people now start putting seatbelts in software and applications to protect the individual.
Right. Well, your current book, and when did Cyber Risk come out? Recently?
Yeah, Cyber Crisis came out 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years.
And you're going to write, are you really going to write 10 books in 10 years? I mean, with AI, it's gotten a lot easier.
Yeah. well, that's the plan. So the next one to sort of hint a little bit is basically talking about the current cyber war, because I believe we're in a war now. And I think in 2 or 3 years, the U.S. will actually declare war, like that we've been at war with China and Russia. So I believe we're going to have a third world war.
It might not be kinetic or entirely.
It's going to be all cyber-based, and it's all going to be AI. And basically...
That's why they took soft power off the fence.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because, I mean, you even look at some of the stuff that's going on now between Israel and Gaza. I mean, it's all cyber-based.
Right.
I mean, you look at what Israel did, where they basically put explosives in pagers and cell phones. Yeah. I mean, that's off the wall high. And then basically you just set code to basically activate or deactivate. So, I mean, you're looking at what's happening in these high-end wars. It's all cyber-based attacks. It's not physical weaponry anymore.
Right. Fascinating time to be alive. So if there's a CEO listening or someone who really wants to get in touch with you, want to hire you or do a speaking engagement, how do they do that?
So the best bet is to email me. So ecole@secure-anchor.com. Okay. So ECOLE at secure-anchor.com. But also what I recommend to folks is I'm very big at giving back. Mm-hmm. So if you look at my Instagram or YouTube channels, Dr. Eric Cole, DRERICCOLE, I give away a lot of free content. Yeah. So I sort of, as we talked about before it started, about sort of ethical sales. Yeah. My whole thing is look at what I give you for free and use that first. And then if you want to go to the next level, then let's talk about me hiring. But I'd rather give you the stuff for free. You do the basics and then bring me in for the advanced work.
I've actually said the same thing. I really like working for people who already understand what I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's not like entertainment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want people to hire me because I'm a cool Navy SEAL. Although I am a cool Navy SEAL.
You are cool, yeah.
But that's not why I want to be hired.
I'm the same way. Learn the basics and bring me in for the advanced work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Eric, thanks so much for being here. It's been a fascinating conversation, right?
Yeah. It was my pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. So thank you for having me, and always appreciate coming out to the West Coast.
Yeah. So enjoy your time out here and have fun over at Garrett's thing in Utah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'll definitely mention it.
Garrett White Makeup Warrior Conference.
Yeah.
I'll definitely tell him I just came from an interview with you.
Came from an interview with Mark, and Mark said to say hi.
Okay, yeah.
And I appreciate him very much.
And I might add a few other things, but we will put that on the air. So no.
Well, thanks so much for tuning into the Mark Divine Show, folks. I appreciate you walking this path with me, learning how to lead, grow, and make more positive impact in the world. If today's episode with Dr. Eric Cole moved you, please share it with a fellow warrior and leader. Please leave a review wherever you listen and rate the show because it's very helpful. If you'd like to go deeper with our training after you've studied the free stuff, go to unbeatablemind.com. Explore how you can work with me directly in our personal leadership development and transformation programs. You can follow us on Instagram at Mark Divine Leadership. And if you have any comments about this episode, leave it there. So until next time, please forge an unbeatable mind. Are you ready to become an unbeatable leader for the first time in 2025? Well, I'm opening up just 3 VIP coaching spots. This is a private 6-month coaching experience where I personally train elite business owners and leaders to operate at the highest level possible, build the daily discipline of a SEAL with uncommon habits, and gain the respect of a world-class leader by mastering the 5 mountains and the 5 plateaus, and achieve ultimate fulfillment by designing a life that you truly love. This program is not for everyone. It's only for those who refuse to settle for anything less than excellence. So if you're ready to dominate your year, head to markdivine.com/coaching to learn more and fill in your application today. I'll review all your applications and set up a call to see if this program is the right fit.